This is it, the one so many of you have been asking for. Can you beat Fallout 4 without taking any damage? As is tradition by this point, I'm not going to manually reload a save if I take damage. I set my max health to 1 so that any damage at all will kill me. As you'll see soon enough, this turned out to be more complicated than I thought. Because I'm as tough as a wet noodle, strength and endurance aren't important, so I distributed the special points into agility, intelligence, and charisma. A bomb fell, Nate got offed, my child was stolen, and I cosplayed as a fudgesicle. Before I can get the 10mm pistol to take them out at range, I must deal with a few rad roaches. For some reason, this was harder than it should have been. It was also annoying, as my health had not yet been set to 1, because I didn't have a Pip-Boy to see what my health actually was. So I reloaded a save if I took any damage. Then I got the Pip-Boy, escaped the vault, and headed to Sanctuary Hills to reunite with Codsworth, get another special point, and crack open a safe. I looted a shotgun off a corpse, met Dogmeat, and entered Concord. Preston Garvey had unfortunately killed most of the raiders outside the Museum of Freedom, robbing me of sweet experience points. But I completed the out-of-time quest, leveled up, and noticed something shitty, but not entirely unexpected. When you level up in Fallout 4, your health increases, so every time I level up, I must enter a command to take my health back down to 1. I entered the museum and made quick work of the raiders inside. I used the power armor to rip the minigun off its bipod, exited the power armor, switched to a pipe rifle, began clearing the town, and, after taking out almost all of them, I parkoured my way off the roof and down to the ground. And then a new problem. I took damage. Strange, that shouldn't have happened. I reloaded a save and discovered the problem. Armor. Armor affects how much damage you can take, something I neglected to think about. The run is still salvageable. The few times I took damage, I reloaded a prior save. This just means that I can't use any armor whatsoever. Not ideal, but whatever. The next task was to deal with the Deathclaw. The first time he hit me with a rock. I wasn't gonna let that happen again, so I used Psycho, Jet, and a minigun to finish him off. I know, Psycho increases damage resistance, but if I took any damage, I would have reloaded a save, so it's a non-issue. On my way to Diamond City, I stopped and bought a suit from Trash Can Carla. It doesn't have any damage resistance, but it boosts charisma by 2, which is useful in getting more caps out of NPCs. And that's exactly what I did. I also killed a drug dealer, because drugs are bad, okay? And then I got distracted by some feral ghouls and helped out Paladin Dance. I say helped out, but really I just threw Molotovs off the top of a bus. Clearing out the ArcJet systems with Dance wasn't as hard as you'd expect. Stay hidden behind a wall and only take pot shots at the synths while Dance does the heavy lifting and you'll be fine. Once I made sure he hadn't been cooked to death, we got the thingy he was after, I got a laser rifle from him, and I was back on the road to Diamond City. Once I was inside, I returned to Sanctuary to drop off a bunch of crap that I didn't need. Back in Diamond City, I talked to Piper to get her as a companion, bought some stuff, sold some stuff, and got Nick Valentine's location from Ellie. I ran into a tricky spot with some raiders just outside of Diamond City. I ended up needing to peek out from behind cover, fire blindly to proceed. Then that situation repeated itself inside a building when I got my skull caved in by a tire iron. Stealth and a few grenades took care of that though. While I was in that downtown area, I went ahead and discovered Good Neighbor and the railroad inside the Old North Church. The primary reason being that I wanted the suppressed 10mm pistol Deacon gives you when you're at the switchboard. It would make eliminating the triggermen in the vault much easier. The switchboard itself wasn't all that difficult, except for the spot where you have to hack the terminal to proceed. There were about 5 synths in the area, and it took me several attempts to get past it. With the deliverer in my possession, I sold what I had to get the Tinker Tom Special, a suppressed sniper rifle. I was finally ready to enter Park Street Station. I dismissed Piper to be even sneakier and took out the triggermen with ease. For some reason, I tried a more aggressive approach deeper inside the vault, which resulted in me getting my ass blasted several times, so I resorted to sneaking around like a little gopher. When it came time to deal with Skinny Malone, I convinced his girl to leave him. Skinny gave me 10 seconds to leave. I went just far enough to be hidden, then killed him and his freak friends. Upon returning to Diamond City, I got through the conversation with Nick in his office as quickly as I could so I could go get Kellogg's key from Mayor McDonough. I ignored Dogmeat, dropped off a few things in Sanctuary, and was headed to Fort Hagen. Once I got inside, I took my sweet time clearing out all the synths and turrets, picking up as much loot as I could carry. Then for some reason, I couldn't proceed. I couldn't take the elevator down to the lower level of the building. I had to go back to Diamond City, talk to Dogmeat, then go back to Fort Hagen, sleep in a nearby building, and tell Dogmeat to piss off before going back inside, where, you guessed it, all the synths were back. And even after telling Dogmeat to take a hike, he followed me inside for some reason. By this point, I had put several points into Gunslinger, Sneak, and Ninja, which made my silenced 10mm pistol incredibly effective. The synths did kill me once, but I'll blame that on them catching me off guard. Kellogg was just up ahead. There were several ways to do this. What I wanted to do was stand right in front of him and take out him and his synths in a fantastic display of power. That didn't happen. I could land a few shots on Kellogg, but the synths would kill me. What I ended up doing was loading myself up with Jet and landing half a dozen shots on Kellogg before he could even react. Then I beautifully dodged a punch and a laser rifle shot and killed both synths with headshots. The Brotherhood of Steel arrived. I went back to relay my findings to Nick, convinced Dr. Amari to send me inside Kellogg's brain, did that memory nonsense, and was off to the glowing sea. You might think that I'd stealth my way through the glowing sea, avoiding all enemy encounters, but that's not what I did. The laser rifle I got from Dance earlier was pretty effective against both rad scorpions and bloatflies. I even took on the Deathclaw that waits just outside of Virgil's cave. And then, of course, got the rundown on what I'd need to do next from Virgil. I also stole his tin cans. And then I was off to Green Tech Genetics to fight against a Courser. Surprisingly, the turrets turned out to be more annoying than the raiders inside. Stealth, once again, proved to be an effective way of traversing a dangerous area, and I was ready to fight the Courser. All it took was a dose of Psycho, a Stealth Boy, and some Jet, and I blew the Courser's head off before he even knew I was there. I also killed the hostages he had taken. This time around, rather than just racing to beat the game as quickly as possible, I wanted to do something different, so I sided with the Brotherhood of Steel. I went back to the police station to take a ride up to the Pridwin. I fired a minigun, listened to Elder Maxon's speech, and was given my next assignment: murder. Well, it's not technically murder, since the super mutants shouldn't exist at all. What you're supposed to do is ride the vertibird to kill them all. That seemed like a really good way of getting shot, so I did the next best thing. I jumped off the Pridwin and hoped I survived the landing. I did. Tinker Tom's Tinker Toy came in handy here. Almost every scum of the Commonwealth in that particular area at the time embraced death after a single shot to the head. The Behemoth was a different story. When you kill the Behemoth in Fallout 3, you're given a fat man to do it. So, naturally, I took out a handgun to kill the Behemoth. It was a shot to the liver that finally took him out of his misery. I was also required to secure the nearby building, which was just more stealth killing. It was time to take the next step. I returned to the railroad to have the Courser chip decoded, then got the signal interceptor plans from Virgil and gave those to Captain Cripple, or whatever her name is. I got the base built, scrapped almost all the junk I had in Sanctuary, and got everything built at the airport. Inside the Institute, I listened to Father ramble on about some boring bullshit, then went to recruit Dr. Madison Lee. While I was down there, I went into the FEV lab to grab Virgil's serum, even though I had no plans of giving it to him. That was a mistake because the legendary Assaultron down there is a giant bitch. Killing it isn't the hard part. The hard part is getting far away enough from the explosion of the goddamn Nagasaki bomb strapped up its ass that was rigged to explode when it dies. Eventually I got lucky enough and survived the blast, and was finally able to leave that underground shithole and go back to the balloon in the sky. The next task involved a lot of going back and forth between the airport and the Pridwin. Up north in some building was a special magnet that the cripple needed to power her vibrator, which seems like a waste since she can't feel anything down there anyway. Then I made some electromagnetic actuators that just kinda sat there on the ground. All that was needed to activate Liberty Prime now was an assortment of nuclear warheads located in a bunker deep in the glowing sea. Gee, what fun. I had plenty of Rad-X and Rad-Away, so going out there and securing the nukes was more of a hassle than a challenge. With Liberty Prime finally activated, it was finally time to take the fight to the Institute. Yeah, no, see, spoilies ahead, Dance is a synth, and he got super spooked when he found that out, so he fled like the giant pussy he is. Maybe he should talk to the cripple, her vibrator might be better off in his hands. Once I got to where Dance had ran off to, I figured something out about Fallout 4 that annoyed the absolute shit out of me. In Fallout 3 or New Vegas, when you load a save file, you go from the loading screen to gameplay. There's no transition, just a cut between screens. In Fallout 4, there's a fade in from black every time you load a save. During that fade in, the game doesn't stop. So you can make a save when an enemy is behind a corner, but during that half second or so it takes to get back to the actual gameplay, the enemy is moving. This isn't a big deal during normal gameplay. You can take a little damage, no big deal. But in this run, any damage kills me. It's stupid, and I have no idea why they added that fade in. It made dealing with the protectrons down there much harder than it needed to be. In time, I was able to get past them. After talking to Dance, I realized the best course of action was to execute him. When I told Maxon what happened, I made the final decision to become enemies with the railroad, who needed to be destroyed. With my sneak skills so high, the battle inside the Old North Church wasn't too rough. A Brotherhood soldier got in my way, resulting in a poorly thrown grenade that killed him. Oh well, casualty of war. Inside the railroad HQ is where things got real. I had to use all of my grenades to kill Desdemona and crew. In the end, though, the railroad was no more. But even in their absence, trains would continue to live on through stories and legends. Only one more quest stands between me and the endgame. And, like a fool, I agreed to take the cripple along with me. This was, by far, the hardest part of the game. You ride a vertibird around the top of the mass fusion building. All the while, a bunch of synths are shooting at you. The minigun on the bird is powerful but inaccurate. Remember that saving problem I mentioned a little while ago? Yeah, that comes into play here too. Any mistake results in failure. I even tried pumping myself full of Psycho and Jet. Those helped, but the Psycho allowed me to take damage, which ruled that out as an option. What finally worked was just sheer willpower. I spent about an hour on this segment, well over 50 attempts. Then I landed and had to fight even more synths. I tried to kill all the synths on that elevator ride down into the building. For once, the cripple came in handy as she took all the damage while I sat crouched in the corner. And then came the beryllium agitator and the anti-theft brigade. I had planned for this by placing a few mines outside the doors. The Assaultron activated its hacks and ran right for me. Somehow, I managed to escape death right there. I blew its head off and ran like hell to escape the explosion that didn't even happen. At long last, it was time to activate Liberty Prime. So big, so beautiful, so patriotic. If you've seen my Fallout 3 videos, you probably know what's coming. Following Liberty Prime across the map was boring as hell. I shit you not, it took 15 minutes to get from the airport to the Institute. The fight towards the reactor was fairly standard. Sit back, pick off the synths from afar, rinse and repeat. I decided against getting Father's help, opting for the more fun route, where I put a bullet in his eye socket. I used a stealth boy to take out one of the legendary synths inside the reactor room. He had this awesome triple-barrel missile launcher, which was the perfect tool to exterminate all Institute life in the room. With a charge on the reactor, Cripple teleported us away to the teleporter room. I told Robo-Sean to piss off and die. Cripple sent us to safety. I nuked the Institute and beat Fallout 4 without taking any damage.
I got it. I turned it off. Shut up.
Caps are an essential part of Fallout 4. You use them to buy ammo, stim packs, weapons, and you can even bribe people with them. But what if you pretended that caps don't exist? Can you beat Fallout 4 without spending any caps? Up first, as always, is our special setup. Because Charisma in Fallout 4 is pretty much only used to get extra caps from quest givers, it's a useless stat. Maxed out intelligence gives us more experience points for every action, letting us level up faster. Perception isn't all that important, so I spread out the remaining points evenly into strength, endurance, agility, and luck. I could have put more points into luck, but I was only concerned with getting the Scrounger perk to find extra ammo, and it only requires 2 points in luck. I ran to the vault, experienced the deep freeze, watched my wife die, woke up, and tried to ignore the freezer burn. Not a whole lot to do in the vault. Out into the world, and I finally fixed the textures. It looks so beautiful with grass, doesn't it? I went west for a change of pace and killed a few raiders, a dog, a few bloatflies, and upped my arsenal before heading to Sanctuary. There, I leveled up and got the Aqua Boy perk to avoid radiation damage in water, upgraded my 10mm pistol, spoke to Codsworth, put the extra special point into endurance just to make life in the wasteland a little less miserable, found dog meat, and arrived at the Museum of Freedom. I killed the raiders inside, picked a lock, got through the conversation with Preston as quickly as possible, and stepped into my power armor. Finally, I could actually use the power armor as much as I wanted, without having to worry about it changing my size or absorbing too much damage or giving me a Pip-Boy. It was liberating. I returned to Preston, but didn't get through enough of the dialogue for them to move on to Sanctuary. No, they're staying right there in the Museum of Freedom. Then, I decided to do something different. I was curious about something. I had power armor and was finally gonna put it to good use. I headed straight south towards the glowing sea. Along the way, I slapped a raider so hard his arm exploded. I got into a fight with some ghouls, then decided to run the swear word away, leaving Dogmeat to deal with them. I fought even more ghouls, this time a little more successfully. I got into a bit of a scuffle with a few raiders, resulting in both my legs being broken and a lot of my ammo being wasted. I did get a missile launcher though. A short time later, my only fusion core ran out of juice. I ditched the armor, took some Red X, managed to survive the glowing sea, and arrived at Virgil's cave. I was hoping I'd be able to skip a lot of the game like you can in Fallout 3, but Virgil was nowhere to be found. Still, this will save me a lot of time and effort down the line. The search for my son was once again my number 2 priority. On a bridge north of somewhere, I killed a doctor and took her shit. She had 9 stim packs and I didn't. I couldn't let that slide. That leveled me up, and at level 5, I finally put the first point into Scrounger. Don't ask why I waited so long to do it. This was the perk that I really needed because ammo is really my only concern in this run. Weapons and armor don't need to be repaired, and stim packs become stupidly powerful pretty early on. So keeping a solid supply of bullets was all I was really concerned about. I arrived at the Diamond City gate and didn't bother with all the shit between Piper and McDonough. I entered, fought my urge to sell all the junk I picked up, spoke to Ellie, and was off to rescue Nick Valentine. Real quick, is it just me or does Ellie look like she could be in BioShock Infinite? I don't know if it's the lighting, the hair, the character model, or what. None of the other characters in the game look this way to me. I don't know. Anyway, I dropped off most of my stuff in Sanctuary, found some pretty solid new armor off a dead guy, quickly killed everyone at the Charles View Amphitheater, entered Park Street Station, and started chopping away at everyone that moved. The bladed tire iron is a pretty good melee weapon. I even managed to get a picture-perfect decapitation on someone. I had recently reached a level 7, so I put another point into Scrounger, which pretty much did away with any ammo-related worry I'd have throughout the rest of the game. Dogmeat finally decided to show up. I'm not sure where he'd been while I was getting my murder on. I saved Nick, snagged the bobblehead on my way out, exploded Skinny Malone, and took a seat in Nick's office to explain my story so far. The next obstacle on the road to finding my boy was a door, a pesky lock. A robot couldn't pick the lock, and I lacked the firepower to blow the bitch open. The solution was simple. I turn on the charm and bribe the mayor's assistant. And then I remembered that bribing someone counts as spending caps. So I reloaded a save, waited for everyone to leave, and stole the key. That was actually the second time I tried that. The first time I did it in broad daylight, and it didn't go well. I found a clue in Kellogg's apartment, let Valentine tag along for the adventure, shoved a cigar down Dogmeat's snout, and fast-traveled to Fort Hagen. I discovered it on my way down to Virgil's cave a few minutes ago. Dogmeat decided to be a prima donna and not let me talk to him, probably a bug or something. After spending far too long trying to fix it, I just ignored Dogmeat and went inside to find Kellogg. Despite doing this probably a dozen times now, I somehow managed to get lost on the first few floors. I fought through a few waves of synths, and didn't even try to do something cool to defeat Kellogg. I threw 2 grenades and blasted him with a missile launcher. After picking apart his body like a vulture, I went back to Diamond City to talk to Piper. This was the first time I'd ever had Nick with me for the Kellogg fight. Just seemed weird to have to talk to Piper to continue the main quest. In Good Neighbor, I did the thing with Dr. Amari, explored someone's brain, and browsed Reddit while Kellogg talked to the Courser. The next stop was the glowing sea. Luckily for me, I've been there before. Still reeling from the disappointment from the last time I was out this way, I tried to kill Virgil, hoping it would change something. You can't, and it doesn't. Virgil's cave? More like Squaresville. You're supposed to go to the CIT ruins and listen for some radio signal, but that's very boring. Just go to the Green Tech Genetics building and save yourself some time. Kellogg's pistol turned out to be not great. I swapped it for a pipe revolver with half as much damage and proceeded to miss half my shots. Just like with Kellogg, I threw everything I had at the courser to avoid having to do this more than once. I was planning to drop 5 mines and have them all go off at once, but the bitch walked forward too soon. So I chopped his face off with my tire iron, killed the hostages because of course, and returned to Dr. Amari, who then sent me away to figure it out by myself. She suggested that I find the railroad, which is exactly what I did. I found them, and I killed them all, and I analyzed the courser chip myself. Virgil gave me the plans, and I was off to the police station to lend Dance a hand. ArcJet Systems was a breeze, and I could finally take a ride up to the Pridwin. But before that ride, I decided to get proactive. I took all the junk I'd saved, all the weapons I'd hoarded, and dumped them out onto the ground. Then I scrapped them all, except for a biometric scanner and a military-grade circuit board. With all this scrap, I could finally upgrade my armory, mostly just for increased damage. I slapped a powerful receiver and a reflex sight on my combat rifle, a calibrated powerful receiver on my 10mm pistol, and a powerful receiver on my pipe sniper rifle. With my upgraded weapons, I was ready to tackle my second mission from Elder Maxson. Wipe out the super mutants near and within Fort Strong. Easy peasy. I gave Proctor Ingram the plans from Virgil and started assembling the teleporter. With all the junk I scrapped earlier, this was nothing. Now, Elder Maxson gave me a very simple order. Do not kill anyone in the Institute and convince Dr. Madison Lee to join the Brotherhood. I did not do that. I descended upon the Institute like an angel of death, and unlike my Without a Pip-Boy run, I was prepared. After I executed Father, synths and coursers began swarming the room. The Nerd Rage perk really helped out here, and within a few minutes, they were all dead. I looted all the corpses for ammo and was ready to make my escape. Sort of. There were just a few synths left, like 3 of them. I took out a few with my 10mm pistol and soon realized that it would not cut it. But that's why I brought my big guns. Even at close range, the missile launcher was incredibly effective. I must have killed at least a dozen synths with my first 2 shots. With the third, I killed even more and broke both my arms. I picked off the stragglers with my pistol and began looting. There was just no way I was going to leave all that stuff behind. According to my Pip-Boy, I was now carrying almost 1,500 pounds of items. Judging by the number of armor pieces in my inventory, I had killed at least 45 synths by this point. And then there were those guarding the teleporter, probably another 50 synths. So, just another day in the office. And then came the escape. I had 2,800 pounds of stuff. I couldn't just leave it behind. So, I walked back to Sanctuary, while carrying a literal ton of armor and weapons. It took a very long time. I should have checked beforehand, because all the synth armor pieces, which made up more than 2,500 pounds of what I was carrying, were worth a single piece of plastic each. That's it. All that work for nothing. And Maxson was pissed that I ignored Dr. Madison Lee altogether. Luckily for us both, he had a contingency plan. A professor in Diamond City. Well, she was anyway. On my way to find her, I helped Sully Mathis with his water problem. Then I blew his head off. I found the professor in a bowling alley and convinced her to join the cause. Next came another exciting round of Detective Mitten tracks down something he doesn't understand. This time, a magnet. How exciting. I found it, taunted a super mutant suicider, which didn't go particularly well, crafted the 4 electromagnetic actuators. With power restored, I upgraded my weapons one final time, ventured out to the Sentinel site to secure enough nukes to end the world again, and told Ingram of my successes. We're almost ready to take the fight to the Institute. Unfortunately, Dance ran off and it fell on moi to track him down. There was just one small thing to take care of first. Remember how I left Preston inside the Museum of Freedom? There was a reason for that. My hope was that I could exterminate him like I did the railroad. But that's not the case. Damn you, Bethesda. Why must Mama Murphy be immortal? Full of rage, I found Dance and took him out the only way I knew how, by mistake. The plan was to throw a grenade through the window and blow him up from a distance. What actually happened was that the glass didn't break and the grenade landed on the windowsill and blew up. The result was the same. Dance was dead. It was just not the way I wanted it to go. I returned to Maxon and was told to wipe out the railroad. I already did that, but I had to go to the Old North Church to retrieve Pam. There were a few nameless nobodies there, so I used a tactic that I employed in my backwards New Vegas run. Stand in place, blast enemies to hell. If I'm going, they're coming with me. Once I got the beryllium agitator, it was finally time to walk with Liberty Prime. The more times I play through Fallout 3 and 4, the more I hate these escort Liberty Prime bullshit missions. They're so boring, especially when Liberty Prime gets stuck and spends 10 minutes standing in place. While I waited for Liberty Prime to get his shit together, I killed everyone at Bunker Hill. Inside the Institute, again, my combat rifle was more than enough for the synths, taking 2 to 3 shots each to kill them all, except for the guerrillas. In the reactor room, I picked a flamer up off a dead synth and used it to clear the room. I planted the charge, was teleported to safety, tried desperately to burn Sean to death, and when that didn't work, I tried to beat him with a wrench, which also didn't work. Ingram sent us to safety again, I nuked the Institute, and beat Fallout 4 without spending any caps.
I got it. I turned it off. Shut up.
Fallout 4 changed the Fallout franchise in a number of big ways, but arguably the biggest change is in the game's weapon system. Every weapon can be modified to suit your playstyle, but there's a weapon that doesn't really fit in with the missile launchers, fully automatic rifles, and nuclear warheads. Can you beat Fallout 4 with only a commie whacker? I awoke in the bathroom and discovered how truly beautiful I am. The special setup for this run is relatively standard for a melee-only playthrough. Lots of points in strength and endurance, some in luck to get the Idiot Savant perk later on, and the rest don't matter too much. After the Great War, I found the first problem. Because this is a commie whacker only playthrough, I can't use my fists or any of the weapons available in Vault 111. It wouldn't be so bad if the rad roaches weren't so damn annoying. You can't pick up a Pip-Boy if you're in combat. Put another way, you can't simultaneously pick up the Pip-Boy and be a tasty snack for the roaches. Unfortunate. We could forego the Pip-Boy for a little while and glitch ourselves out of the vault, but that's too easy. Instead, I lured the roaches down the hall, sprinted back through the door and out the other end of the hall, and closed the door behind me. Then I crouched, waited until I was hidden, picked up the Pip-Boy, and left the vault. Now, there's the issue of finding a commie whacker. Sure, I could just spawn one with console commands, but that's boring too. So, I'll have to travel to Nuka World to find one. The first thing I did was return to Sanctuary to get another special point. Then it was off to Nuka World. The recommended level to be at before you enter Nuka World is 30. I'm level 2. The journey to the DLC entrance was long and hard, just like the shaft of the commie whacker. The next issue is actually getting into Nuka World. There are gunners patrolling the area, not a big deal, but the Assaultron is something to be concerned about. I ran inside the train station and got fucked to death by the Assaultron's mouth. Why didn't I just use stim packs and run like hell? Because, my dear boy, I don't have any stim packs. I forgot them. After that shit show, I backtracked to Vault 111 to pick up a few stim packs that were lying around. But I knew that would not be enough. I'd need some sort of powered armor. On the way to said powered armor, I stole a lot of tomatoes from a farm. I let Preston kill the raiders outside the Museum of Freedom, picked up a fusion core, and left Preston to die in the Museum of Freedom as I ran to the roof and stole the power armor. I had supplies, I had a pocket full of room temperature tomatoes. I had everything I'd need to get through Nuka World. The Assaultron once again tried to get inside my pants, but the power armor protected me, and hiding in the train station threw her off my trail long enough for me to restore power to the train and be on my way to the greatest amusement park ever devised. After arriving in Nuka World, I had to traverse the gauntlet of extreme pain, mayhem, and misfortune. All things being equal, it wasn't that bad. The wooden floor falling out was annoying, the turrets constantly shooting were a pain, and the gas room pissed me off because a bunch of roaches pinned me against the wall and tried to do things to my fanny. But I got through it all with only a few hundred scratches. Next came the boss battle, in which my only weapon was a squirt gun. And as you can probably imagine, this is where things took a very dark turn. In order to proceed, you must kill Overboss Coulter. Luckily, the squirt gun does no damage, but there is no way around this fight. To answer the titular question, no, you can't beat Fallout 4 with only a commie whacker, because you can't get a commie whacker without killing someone with something that isn't a commie whacker. Well, it's not the end of the world. I've had runs in the past with a single segment that can't be beaten, like the Guilty Spark fight in Halo 3. So, I decided to say F the system and kill Overboss Coulter. I had a switchblade, which could be a suitable replacement, but my thinking was that if it's not a commie whacker, it doesn't really matter what it is. I used an assortment of the weapons I picked up to lay Coulter to rest, became the new overboss, entered the nuke-cade, and finally found my commie whacker. It's as beautiful as I thought it would be. Actually, that was a lie, because the textures on it are shitty. Probably a result of the mods I have installed that up the resolutions of the game files. Oh well, with an inflatable mallet in my hand, I left Nuka World forever and returned to the Commonwealth to bonk some skulls. The first thing I did with my newfound power was enter the Museum of Freedom to kill the raiders because I'd need the Minutemen later on to enter the Institute. I also learned that the commie whacker sounds just like every other melee weapon. I was hoping for a squeak or something, not the sound of a tire iron slamming on pavement like all the other weapons. Lame. After freeing the trapped settlers, I was off to Diamond City. Along the way, I settled the cats versus dog debate when I killed both a cat and a dog. I also entered ArcJet Systems for some reason and discovered that the Institute hadn't been there yet, so there was nothing in there for me to do. Before I found Diamond City, I passed by Park Street Station, so I saved some time by going down into the subway station to free Nick Valentine. The Triggermen fought valiantly, but none are a match for Mr. Mandelbaum and his mallet. With Nick Valentine free, the only thing standing between me and leaving Park Street Station are Skinny Malone and his gang of hooligan fooligans. I pumped myself full of chems and beat the fuck out of all of them with me mallet. Here's the cool part about rescuing Nick before going to Diamond City. You don't have to listen to Piper argue with security guy. You can just walk right in and ignore Piper on your way to Nick's office. But before entering Nick's office, I sold every weapon and bullet I had to get an ample supply of stim packs and ran away, as well as a chest piece that gave +1 to both agility and perception. And I did keep the squirt gun because I will never part with that. After describing to Nick my situation, I bribed the mayor's assistant to get a key to Kellogg's office. I took Nick as a companion, and after an incredible journey together that lasted maybe 5 seconds, we parted ways when I left to follow Dogmeat as he tracked down Kellogg. Dog Steak led me to Fort Hagen, where, again, Dog Ham followed me inside, despite me telling him to piss off back to where he came from. With the perks and armor I had, the synths weren't much of a challenge, though they were annoying at times, because melee combat in Fallout 4 sucks. I used the same tactic with Kellogg as I did with Skinny Malone, which was chems and me mallet. After thoroughly searching every pocket Kellogg had, and I do mean every pocket, I returned to Diamond City and spoke to Nick and Piper about what to do next. They agreed that going to Good Neighbor was the most okay-ish option available, and when I arrived in Good Neighbor, I introduced Finn to my mallet. The two got to know each other pretty well. Then I entered Kellogg's brain and ate a shitty microwave breakfast sandwich while Sparkles did his thing. Next came the glowing sea. I bought a hazmat suit, stored some stuff in Sanctuary, and was off to Virgil's cave. The children of Adam might have looked at me funny. I don't know because I couldn't see through the hazmat suit, but I assumed that they did and killed them all. Then I got the plans from Virgil and fast-traveled back to CIT Ruins, where I ignored the radio station and ventured towards Green Tech Genetics. The suicidal bitch with a rocket launcher was, as the name suggests, a bitch to deal with, but the rest of the gunners inside were cake manure. I approached the courser with extreme caution and looked on in amazement as a battle took place between two invisible people. I assume it was incredible, I couldn't tell what was going on, but in the end, the courser died, as did the hostages, and I was told by Dr. Amari to find the railroad. I knew what she meant. She pretty much begged me to kill the railroad, which is what I did. Glory was the only one who posed an actual threat. Pam could have been tough, but she ran away when I started bonking her on the head. I then analyzed the courser chip myself, got the plans from Virgil again, and returned to the Museum of Freedom to talk to Sturgis. But I couldn't get Sturgis to look at the plans until they were at Sanctuary, and I couldn't get them to go to Sanctuary until the raiders outside the museum were dead. Luckily, by doing things in the weird order that I did, the Brotherhood were in the area and proved to be great at being bait for both the raiders and the Deathclaw. I only had to pick off a few raiders before I talked to Preston and discovered that a settlement needs my help. I helped them alright. I helped them by ending their worthless lives. I told Preston that they weren't interested in joining the Minutemen. He rambled on about dead people or something, and finally, the topic shifted from being all about him to all about me when he asked me about the plans I mentioned earlier. Sturgis looked at the plans, I built all the science mumbo-jumbo, and emailed myself inside the Institute. As you may have guessed, by my lack of doing stuff for other factions, I decided to side with the Institute this time around. As disappointing as it was to see that my son looks nothing like me, I pushed onward and met with the people in charge of things in the Institute and got my first mission: track down a rogue synth and bring it home. I would have preferred to not do this in a radiation storm, but when do I ever get what I want? The mission was a success, and Father drowned me in his thick, creamy praise. The synth re-getting mission was more like a practice round than anything important, as what came next was the Battle of Bunker Hill. Lots of fighting, lots of death, my kind of party. You're supposed to run around the back side of Bunker Hill, but I didn't want to do that, so I jumped on a bus and hopped the fence, fought my way past a few Brotherhood Knights, and used the 4 reset codes to put the synths in sleep mode. I spoke to Father atop CIT ruins. It was a real bitch to get up there, by the way. And then we spoke again inside the Institute, where he gave me the best present a father could ask for. My son has a terminal illness and is going to die. I couldn't be happier, because I don't think he's actually my son. He doesn't have my nose or my horribly mutated vomit-inducing facial features. Regardless, we have work to do. Well, I have work to do. He's getting busy with the dying and whatnot. I transmitted to Mass Fusion, where I bonked a lot of Brotherhood scribes with me mallet and retrieved the beryllium agitator. And then came the robots. Fucking machines. With the help of a stealth boy, I was able to land a few sneak hits on the sentry bot, but the Assaultrons must have been friends of Pam, because they were not nice to me. Some time ago, I had installed a few blades on my inflatable mallet. Probably not the smartest idea I've ever had, but they came in handy here, because the Assaultrons bled like the robotic, humanoid dogs they are. I traveled back to the Institute, gave the agitator to whatever her name is, and was told by Father that there was something I needed to do to a house, or in a house, or something. I followed the waypoint and had to convince some little shit stain to come out of the closet and travel with scientists to an underground bunker with unfathomable technology where they assured he'd be safe. The end is near. I can smell it in my giant fucking nose. I returned to the Institute and delivered a message to the Commonwealth. Then I went to Diamond City and did the thing with the buttons and the dials and the switches to beef up the transmitter. I then activated the reactor in the basement to ensure that I'd be able to heat up my chicken nuggets in the event of a power outage, and received word of the last step. The Brotherhood of Steel must be destroyed. I was transported just outside the airport and was tasked with infiltrating the base and destroying 3 generators. I did it with unimaginable grace. There was little to no wasted motion. Every swing of my mallet calculated and executed with ungodly precision. Just kidding. I closed my eyes and swung wildly at the big metal men. All that's left is to infect Liberty Prime with communist propaganda, and the victory will be claimed in the name of science. The Brotherhood sent everything they had at me in the synths. Even Elder Maxon arrived on the scene. I'm not sure what happened to him. I think he slipped and fell off the roof or something. Regardless, I was teleported, against my will mind you, away to safety where I watched the Pridwin go down in flames. Pridwin? More like Prid was. Get it? Get it? Get it? Well, that's pretty much it for this adventure. I spoke to Father one last time, though this time I took off my sunglasses and donned my sea captain's cat as a sign of mutual respect between myself and this old man who clearly isn't my son.
I'm glad you're a good sport, something.
And we're back!
Fallout 4's weapon modification system is a vast improvement over what was offered in Fallout 3 and New Vegas. But I always thought that some of the weapons felt too similar, like the combat rifle and the combat shotgun. There is a way to avoid that problem though. Can you beat Fallout 4 by only using each weapon once? This run requires a bit more explanation than some of my previous challenges. The general idea is that you can only get a single kill with a weapon, and then you can never use that weapon again. And by weapon, I mean the platform, I guess. The Deliverer and a normal suppressed 10mm pistol are both 10mm pistols, so I can only use one of them. Variants and modifications don't change what the weapon is. Standard firearms will operate as previously described. It doesn't matter if it takes 500 shots from a minigun to kill a Deathclaw, or if it takes 1 to kill a Radroach. After I get a kill with it, it might as well not exist. Melee and unarmed weapons work the same way. 1 kill. Explosive weapons are different. They have an area of effect, so instead of 1 kill, I get 1 shot. I can throw 1 frag grenade. I can fire the Fat Man 1 time. I can use 1 cryomine. You get the idea. Understand the rules? No? Too bad, we're moving forwards anyway. Because we'll be using every sort of weapon available, special isn't all that important. I put 6 points into intelligence to level up faster, and just sorta spread out the rest somewhat evenly. Then Adam bestowed on mankind a small fraction of his love and power. Nate died, and I emerged from my frozen slumber. From here on out, every enemy encounter requires thought and planning. I can't just kill every enemy I see, because I'd have no weapons left for the endgame. Luckily, you can escape Vault 111 without killing any of the rad roaches by trapping them behind the sliding doors. Out into the wasteland, my first stop was Sanctuary to put another point into intelligence, talk to Codsworth, and get him to kill all the bloatflies pestering the neighborhood. I passed by Red Rock Truck Stop, looted some stuff, and ignored Dogmeat because using a companion would take away some of the challenge. In Concord, I sat back and waited for Preston to kill the raiders attempting to get into the Museum of Freedom. After waiting for about 11 seconds, I got bored and started attacking them myself. I used my fist to kill one raider and got a switchblade from him. By the time I was done fisting the man, Preston had dealt with the others. I tried to skip part of this quest by jumping from the roof of a church to the crashed vertibird atop the Museum of Freedom, but I forgot that there's another door between the door to the roof and where the Minutemen are hiding. So I waited for a while. I sat there, motionless, like a lamp, for about 6 minutes. Turns out Preston truly is worthless, because I did more with one Molotov cocktail in a few seconds than he did with a laser musket in a few minutes. I then used a switchblade to kill one raider, brass knuckles to kill another, a tire iron to kill a third, and I killed the last raider with a security baton. Before talking to Preston, I went and got the power armor because I wanted to know if there's any special dialogue if you show up in the power armor. And there is. Neat. Next, I had to deal with all the raiders outside. Rather than wasting a bunch of weapons, I lured the Deathclaw out of its sewer and got it to do my dirty work for me. There was one raider inside a building that neither the Deathclaw or Preston could reach, so I used a pipe pistol to kill the bitch. After the Deathclaw had its fun, it was time to put my old buddy down, but using a weapon to kill a Deathclaw felt like a waste. So, I spent several minutes taunting it from inside a building where it couldn't get me. It would be focused on me, while Preston missed 90% of the shots he took. The Claw did manage to get inside the building once, which was pretty spooky. Quite a while later, the beast was dead, Preston thanked me, and I was off to Diamond City. Along the way, I interrupted a stroganoff at Drumlin Diner, got Wolfgang to pay me, convinced him that I was going to handle the poor souls inside, then did the old switcheroo by siding with Trudy and getting her to open fire. She won, I had a few corpses to add to my collection, I sold some stuff that I didn't need, and continued marching towards Diamond City. I took the long way to Diamond City, like the really long way. I probably discovered a dozen locations on my travels to the big field. I think I was looking for something, but to be perfectly honest, I don't remember what it was, or if I was actually searching for anything in the first place. Let's just say that I was, and that I didn't find it. After about 30 minutes of lonely wandering, I arrived at Diamond City, bullshitted my way through Piper's interview to get some easy experience, picked up trash for a Make-A-Wish kid, talked to Ellie, bought an assortment of weapons from Arturo, and was off to rescue Nick Valentine. And this is where things started getting challenging. You can technically enter the vault without killing the Triggermen, but you'd need to have planned ahead and gone for a stealth build. I didn't, which is very bad. I tried hiding and waiting, but they found me. What this means is that I'll have to kill them all. First I used a baseball bat, then a 10mm pistol, then a submachine gun I picked up off a corpse, and by that point the Triggermen closer to the subway station entrance weren't interested in fucking with me, so I entered the vault and ran past all the Triggermen inside. When I approached Nick, I pulled out a double-barrel shotgun and painted the floor with Dino's blood. But everything has to be a fucking nightmare, because for whatever reason, I couldn't talk to Nick. Probably due to the 2 Triggermen nearby, which quickly became like 6 Triggermen. I really should have played Elmo's Number Journey before I did this. Then the Triggermen entered the room and, guess what? Nick couldn't give any less of a fuck about anything. Like a stuffed animal being tortured, he just stood there and took it. I managed to take out a few of them with a lucky grenade throw, and, after a few attempts, I got another one with the laser musket. By now I was laughably low on supplies. I've got drugs and fruit. Awesome. The upside is that Nick is finally awake and can fight. The next, 4 minutes consisted of me running around avoiding gunfire while waiting for Nick to regain consciousness. Then I remembered my old cheese technique, where you enter a new area while a companion is unconscious to make them wake up. I did that for a while, then ran past all the Triggermen until I got to the door that wouldn't open. Nick must open it. So I sat and waited for Nick to mosey his way up to where I was. If I was smart, I would have snagged a missile launcher before I got myself in this mess. But I didn't, which means I have no way of dealing with Skinny Malone. If I had an IQ that was in the double digits, I would have tried to convince Skinny to let me leave peacefully. Instead, I ran past them to the surface. And wouldn't you know it, Nick followed me and then he went back down. This is where things got really annoying. Skinny Malone must be dealt with, which, in my case, means that Nick Valentine must kill them because I'm essentially a wet noodle with hands. I did try fast traveling to Diamond City, hoping that Nick would be there, but he wasn't. I then tried running into the fray to get Nick to follow me to the surface. That worked, until Nick ran the wrong fucking way! I've wasted far too much time talking about this goddamn shit show. I'll jump to the end and tell you that it took a long time to get Nick to kill the remaining Triggermen, allowing me to finally progress the story by explaining my situation to Nick in Diamond City. The door to Kellogg's house was locked, so I convinced the mayor to give me the key, looted Kellogg's house, traveled to Fort Hagen, went back to the Museum of Freedom for my power armor, talked to Dogmeat, and entered Fort Hagen. The power armor and stim packs I'd stocked up on allowed me to plow through all the synths without actually attacking any of them. I used a minigun to kill Kellogg, skimmed through his terminal, ignored the remaining synths, watched the Pridwin arrive in the Commonwealth, talked to Nick and Piper, then went to Sanctuary to meet with Preston so that I'd be able to use the workbench there and store all my useless crap there. From there, I entered Good Neighbor, stole a Fat Man, talked to Dr. Amari, entered Kellogg's Frosted Memories, and began the process of making my way to Virgil's cave in the glowing sea. I ditched my power armor because I had plenty of Rad-X and Radaway, and because I only had a little energy left in the soul fusion core I had. I avoided all the scary monsters in the Green Sea, convinced Virgil to help me, picked up my power armor, and went to Green Tech Genetics to kill me a Courser. Just like in Fort Hagen, I ignored the gunners shooting at me and saved my rage for the Courser. I didn't have much to choose from, so I beat the Courser to death with a dull Chinese officer's sword. I then sold some stuff to Cleo, spoke to Dr. Amari again, and entered the Old North Church. The ghouls in the basement proved to be a challenge the first time around, so I reloaded a save, used a stealth boy, and met Desdemona. I save scummed until I passed the charisma checks, got the Courser chip analyzed, returned to Virgil to get his plans, did some secret handshake shit with Deacon, and entered the switchboard. This was another situation that could have benefited from any planning at all. I let Deacon fight the turrets and the synths in the first section, but he's a pussy and couldn't handle it. I'm a pussy too, so I ran past the synths, activated a turret that I thought would be much more effective than it was, hacked a door, and got myself into a bit of a pickle. See, I need to wait for Deacon to regain his composure and help me, but I can't do that with all these synths attacking me. Praise be to Todd Howard, I had a bottle cap mine that I could use to take out every synth in the room. There were still more on the prowl, but I was able to use a stealth boy to sit in a corner and wait for a while. After about 8 minutes of nothing, I went to check on Deacon, and he was there as my savior like the Daniel Radcliffe Lord of the Rings guy. Anyway, I waited a little longer. Deacon opened the door. I got the deliverer, which is pretty much worthless. Let the synths torture Deacon for a while, fled from the switchboard, and reported back to Desdemona. The time has now come to get inside the Institute. I dropped off some stuff at Sanctuary and went to the build site. The issue here is that there are some baddies that need to go, but I can't afford to use my few remaining weapons on the assortment of ghouls and radroaches in the area. There is a Mr. Handy on site though, so I was able to lure the enemies into him and let him kill them. Then I got the machine built, faxed myself inside the Institute, talked to Father, talked to the Division bigwigs, and began life as an underground agent by planting the seeds of revolution, thanks in part to a guy named Liam. Liam, what a dumb name. Like any tree hugger, I care for my plants, which is why I needed to get a password to use as fertilizer? You know what, this plant analogy was never funny to begin with. I traveled to Cambridge Polymer Labs to find a password somewhere within its partially collapsed walls. I spent more time in there than I should have, and used an Institute pistol, one of my last ranged weapons, before I got the code and returned to Desdemona again. My next objective was to speak to Z-114, who told me to take out a few guards in order to aid the robot revolution. This time, I prepared, and used a missile launcher and some psycho to take out all 5 synths with one shot. Finally, something worked out in my favor. I continued working undercover, walked along the ocean floor in a power armor suit, got fucked hard by either a fat man or a missile launcher, used a recall code on a synth, let the Courser deal with all the unpleasantness in the area, and returned to Father to let him ejaculate his praise all over his mother. That's kind of a weird thing to say. The Battle of Bunker Hill has arrived. I avoided all the enemies and rude people by hopping on the fence and running straight for the hostages in the basement. I did climb the stairs to the pointy tower thing to fall through the sky in hopes that I could either land on the vertibird or on a person on the ground and turn them into paste. Didn't work. What did work, though, was informing the synths that they're free. Father didn't like that, but who cares what he thinks? In fact, fuck my kids. Back inside the Institute, Father revealed that he's dying, and I was tasked with getting the beryllium agitator from mass fusion. Thanks to my power armor, I was able to fall a great distance and skip a lot of the fighting with the Brotherhood of Steel. After I got the agitator, there was a new problem: the sentry bots and assaultrons. I managed to take out one of the sentry bots with a pipe wrench, with some help from Lady Fillmore, who also took out the protectron. The assaultrons fell on me though. I used an assault rifle to kill one, a combat rifle to kill a protectron, and a sledgehammer to kill the last assaultron. And I just want to say that I still really hate melee combat in Fallout 4. From there, I returned to Father, who told me that some nerd is being a stubborn little loser and locked himself inside a closet. I used a pulse grenade and a synth relay grenade to kill the gunners outside the house, and ended up having to use Kellogg's pistol to take out the last gunner. I convinced Wallace to go to the Institute, informed the Commonwealth of the Institute's position as their new gods of the wasteland, upgraded the radio in Diamond City, upgraded the Institute's reactor, and was told that I need to wipe out the railroad. I really didn't want to, so I let Desdemona know what Father suggested. Then I pulled another switcheroo by siding with them and using weapons I'd just bought from Tinker Tom to kill Desdemona and her stupid friends. The end of the line is fast approaching. Actually, I just completed that quest, but you know what I mean. All that's left is to defeat the Brotherhood of Steel on their turf. I prepared by going to a cave in the glowing sea to get a fresh suit of power armor. Then I was faxed to the airport and let the final assault begin. There are 3 generators that need to be destroyed. I used a Fat Man to take out the first one, then a Flamer on the second, and for the third, I was a little stuck. I had no weapons. I tried to get the turrets or protectrons to do damage to it by crouching near it, but that didn't work. Then I tried an Institute beacon, which also did not work. There was only one solution, a final solution. I called the timeout, let the Brotherhood go to get ice cream, while I went to Diamond City to buy a syringer from Dr. Sun. Then I went back to the airport, took out the last generator, and had to protect the Institute virus synth while it flooded Liberty Prime with communist propaganda. I'm gonna go ahead and skip a lot of shit and tell you that this really didn't work out very well. It was actually such a disaster that I didn't even touch Fallout 4 for 2 days after I quit the game. The problem was I had no weapons. So I took a step back and examined this whole situation. I scoured the Fallout wiki for every weapon that I could realistically get my hands on, and then I put my plans into action. I went back to when I first arrived at the airport, went to Diamond City to buy a syringer, went to Hubris Comics to get a Grognag axe, and also happened to run into a few ghouls. Then I went to the Museum of Witchcraft because there was supposedly a revolutionary sword stuck somewhere in the ceiling, but I couldn't find it after a few seconds of looking, so I told the Deathclaw I was not in the mood for his shit, returned the Deathclaw egg to its mother, snagged a Deathclaw gauntlet, and went back to Diamond City to buy any more weapons that I hadn't used yet, like a baseball grenade, a cryo grenade, a super sledge, and a swatter. Yeah, I made an executive decision here that a swatter is different from a baseball bat. It's not like the 10mm pistol and the Deliverer, where the Deliverer is a singular, unique weapon. The swatter is its own platform of weapon that's similar to a baseball bat. I laid all my marbles on the table with this plan. It would either work or I would fail the challenge. I took out the first generator with a bolt-action pipe pistol, which is a different weapon from the normal pipe pistol and pipe revolver. Took out the second generator with a syringer, and destroyed the last generator with a flamer. Now I must defend Liberty Prime. I made my way up the stairs to the top of the platform and shot my only mini-nuke down at the Brotherhood soldiers on the ground. Then I got smart and put my power armor right in front of the stairs to block any Brotherhood cum-stains from coming up the right side of the platform. Then I just sorta held out for a while. Things went south after the virus got to 75% and Elder Maxon arrived on the field. My synths had pretty much ran out, and I'd used my last weapon, leaving me defenseless. I parked my power armor as close to the virus's right side as I could to protect it, and I tried to use my body as a shield from atop the platform, but that didn't work. I would have to be a distraction from down below, even though I had no weapons, no power armor, and was running pretty low on healing items. After a few minutes of that not working, I went back up top, got in my power armor, and managed to protect the virus just long enough for it to finish its job. I got the hell out of there, was teleported to safety, watched the Pridwin destroy everything, including my power armor which I ditched to swim away. I went back to the Institute, spoke to Sean one last time, skipped it all because fuck my son, and beat Fallout 4 by only using each weapon once. The fuck was that sound? I'll be real with ya, I thought this was gonna be more fun than it was. Once you start using the weapons, you slowly start to realize how there aren't very many distinct weapons in the game as you might have thought. According to my list, I used 45 different weapons throughout this run. And you might be wondering what the point of this run was. Well, I'll tell ya. Believe it or not, this entire thing was essentially a practice round for when I attempt to play Fallout 4 without attacking anything. God, that's gonna suck so hard.